If Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 was a watershed moment for video games growing up and Hideo becoming the video game icon we know him as today, then with its sequel on new hardware he not only secured that, but cemented his place in history and built a park on it with a groundbreaking game in every sense of the word. Not only was Metal Gear Solid 2 one of the reasons E3 is now so exciting with first glimpses of new games, but it also gave us the first ever public beta of a game in a then bundled demo disc with Zone of Enders. But what was achieved from Kojima and his team was nothing short of industry leading and astonishing. Take any recent demo from the likes of Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Microsoft with Gears of War, or even the joy from The Last Guardian and Shenmue 3 being a reality. Crunch them together and you get the idea of how big an impact the game made at its debut and eventual release. I do not exaggerate here in saying that this game was an absolute technical, masterful and mechanical masterpiece, but I will delve into that later. The only other game that comes close was Half-Life 2 in its level of impact, in my opinion. The game is set 2 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 1 and the events of Shadow Moses. Snake is now a rogue philanthropist working with Otacon in the philanthropy organisation. When you are creating a discrete underground division, clever naming is low on the to-do list. Trying to confirm if another Metal Gear is in the making, he infiltrates a marine vessel on the Manhattan River that they have information is carrying said mechanical marvel. This tanker level was the complete showing of the E3 trailer and most of its content available within the demo, most likely the most purchased demo in history. And Snake gets back into his sneaking suit and in action with heavy rain to boot. Throughout this mission we are slowly introduced to the brand new game mechanics within the game that are so vast and in depth that when this was played for the first time, mouths spent much time touching the floor. This early tutorial gets you set for the meat of the game, which happens a further 2 years later, 2009, with another mission needing some more stealthy action on board Big Shell, a huge oil refinery off the coast of New York, being taken hostage by a group known as the Sons of Liberty, which manages to confuse even further by a double jeopardy situation involving a deeper government conspiracy with the group known only as the Patriots. The Liberty Gang have kidnapped all on board, including a visiting President of the United States. Escape from New York, reference number 157. Unless the ransom demands are met, all will die in an orchestrated terrorist plan involving death and environmental disarray, a theme of the time and game. But the biggest shock was not the story but the hero, with Kojima trolling the gaming world ahead of any others whilst also using one of the second game's messages of social development of people. Effectively social engineering, rubbing salt in the wound even more by recreating the intro sequence in Lift from Metal Gear Solid 1. He used bait and switch right up to launch, with everyone thinking that you again played as Snake. Instead we were introduced to Raiden, designed to be more appealing to women and more of a low-key, less stereotyped gruffed voice anti-hero as Snake. This, as you can imagine, came with much division on opinion and creating two camps of Team Raiden or Team Snake. This was such a large issue that in the subsequent Substance release that also hit the original Xbox later, added in some Snake Tail missions where you could play on-board missions as Snake in parallel with the original Raiden Tail. But aside the change of hero, the training and upgrades the game and engine delivered are identical. Raiden is much more acrobatic than Snake, so melee was more fancy with wheel kicks and crescent kicks ahoy. The roll was replaced with a fancy cartwheel, but also hair was lavish with the L'Oreal treatment. Sexy. But the vastly expanded moveset from the tanker was also present and correct here. Sneaking, climbing, shooting, first person aiming and the verticality of levels was improved with the new hanging skill, giving you a stamina bar and further evasive options, but with a finite span to heighten the tension. It really was a gargantuan leap over the previous games and all others. Guards could be held up at gunpoint, freeze, pointed the gun at them caused fear and a giveaway jiggle of possible freebies. This could also be achieved by manipulating deceased or incapacitated guards also. This element of surprise coincided with sneaking up at corners, peering round cover and linking together for a seamless action of pop and shoot. This AI routine even had the guard drop out or evade your hold up if you clicked an empty gun at them. The environment was also weaved into this, from the tanker mission coming in from the outside rain caused the camera to fog from condensation. Wet footprints could lead guards to your new hiding ability, which even allowed dispatch guards to be hidden. You could even catch a sniffer with your sneeze, bringing your hide and seek to a close. But the huge leap was how enemies worked in a coordinated style, using comms and clearing military procedure. A fully equipped army expert was used for all mocap animations and methods, adding even more to its authenticity. No element was missed. Pressing the lean button too hard could even cause a bang that would spell trouble for you.
Stop!
Being caught in a full clear mode had the Soliton radar changed to a fixed camera, showing the patrol frantically looking for you in a military fashion. Picking a hiding spot or cardboard box was all up to the highly impressive AI of the game, so good in fact that it really has never been significantly improved on since. But it did not stop here, with physics also being deployed. A shooting gallery of bottles and glasses could be destroyed dependent on impact and would react and move upon the force. Watermelons, crates, steam pipes, even bags of powder or fire extinguishers could be improvised as a makeshift IR viewer for traps. It was not only the vast array of upgrades and improvements the game had, but how they all impacted the core mechanic of the game, adding greater challenge, depth and immersion. Shooting at a guard's radio even stopped them from radioing for help, and if you took out a guard and he didn't check in, they would still come and search the area where they were. Everything was taken care of. This is no clearer in the sense that nearly 15 years later, it still feels like a modern game which would be as special now as it was then. But the PS2 was a powerhouse of machine for the time. Sony had again excelled and made still the most successful console ever and powered it with its evocative emotion engine. All the footage you see here is from the PS2 game. That allowed heavy computational loads. Hideo and crew showed that they had conquered the machine with this showing, taking the machine, dimming the lights, setting up some soft music, pouring the champagne and really setting the mood for an emotional showing. Visually it was unsurpassed at its debut and for some time after. The intro with further references to Hideo's love of 80s action movies, seeing not only Pliskin references, vampires, but the Terminator star as his cloaking suit is shorted by the rain. It's all combined into a showstopper of an entrance, again all running real time on the PS2 and highlighting the talent of the machine and the team. With such dense particle effects of rain, smoke, doff effects on camera, motion capped animation, it also had planar reflection for characters and scenery way before screen space tricks could be used. Even early attempts at a volumetric light and shafts all had screen time to demonstrate how far ahead the team were. With such an impressive game engine from a physics and AI side, along with animation, they still managed to excel just as much, if not more so, with the rendering. With this still not being enough, it also had a fully dynamic lighting system that covered you in shadows and light dependent on the source and area. Lights could be shot out to assist you and hinder the enemies. This is best demonstrated with the engine room shootout, complete with gun-equipped torch that cast dynamic shadows on enemies and scenery. You even had to take into account the light and shadows in the game, as enemies could see your shadow and you could be spotted from this. This was the real stress test though, that can see the frame rate dip from such a huge low, but only by a couple of frames. But the game was on top of all of this at a 60Hz target, but this frame rate could alter between 30 and 60 dependent on the load. But, as this is a PAL version, it also serves as an example of frame options open to devs. This game here in the UK runs at the PAL setting, so instead of it being 60/30 from NTSC, it is actually running 50/25. As I've said before, a great option that still feels as smooth as 60, but here the output is being managed by the machine and engine for the display type. The drops to half rate are mostly in cutscenes, but if the engine can manage the next stage, it drops the cap. All signs of a great engine, but gameplay stays pretty solid at the 60/50 target. But when the high post effects filled cutscenes being where you can notice it most, the doff and makeshift motion blur, an almost PS2 trademark effect of the time, a simple frame blending buffer technique, could cause the FPS to drop to the 30/25, but it never hinders the majority of the gameplay that much and only really makes everything delivered even more impressive. The first casualty was this in the following chapter, as the team had to improve on such a technical masterpiece with vastly enhanced environments and overdraw, which I will cover in my next chapter. It is a solid showing, and also as techniques have advanced here, you can see to emulate slow motion they simply update the frame at the capped point, in this case every 6th frame, for a 10 FPS display on PAL TVs. It is a very interesting example of the old split we used to have from output displays. All wrapped up in a 512x448 resolution, slightly upscaled by the PS2 to the then standard 640x480 of the time. All of these elements come together to deliver a complete experience that you could, and many did, including myself, while time away in playing with these core game mechanics of AI, physics and lighting to impressive effect. The tense atmosphere and art design of the shootout here is a highlight and a personal favourite. The game is littered with these, from boss battles, shootouts or confusing codec conversation. It never fails to keep delivering and surprising. Puzzles all needed logical thought and use of these ingredients to overcome.
Even early signs of destruction were evident in some of the boss battles. And this is not to say it is critique free though. Some of the retreading to extend game time is a little cheap, with the bomb disposal mission outstaying its welcome. Again, some cheesy lines and far too much codec work can intrude. But the enemies are another eclectic mix of mad, bad and bipolar that continues the mix of action, sci-fi and horror from the previous games, and constant throughout the entire series. Even Big Shell should look familiar as it returns as the mother base in the Phantom Pain. But its basic core was true to the game. Keycards kept you locked into areas until earned through boss trials, weapon upgrades came, characters evolved, and the game's story as much as its characters became a focal point. The message in the game was of social development, trust and government distrust, all traits Hideo manipulated for his own ends with a snake to ride and switch. It was also influenced by the Twin Towers attack, meaning parts of the game had to be amended prior to release, including a shot of wrecks between the two towers and the falling of a flag at the end of the game, with Solidus being defeated. Its biggest statement is viewing the hero from a genuine third person. We see Snake as he is to others, a mercenary, a killer, a man that does what it takes no matter the cost. With a seeming betrayal by him in the game leaving Raiden to be captured and tortured, it was Hideo's ulterior motive, to show people that can be made to think and feel a certain way based on actions and misdirection. Ultimately, nobody is perfect, or indeed can even be believed. Nothing is as it seems. The game still stands as possibly the franchise's high point and a benchmark from the team on pretty much all levels: visuals, sound design, animation, game design and mechanics, while also serving as a flagship title on the PS2 platform. But magically it was improved upon further in Snake Eater, a game that made its Rambo love clear. But this is a story for another article, in my Metal Gear chronology, leading us into the much anticipated latest saga, which also shares Metal Gear Solid 2's target of 60 FPS. Join me next time for another look back at Snake and his battle with a new enemy, the jungle and his diet. As always, if you enjoyed this or any of my other content, then please hit the like and sub button. It really helps me immensely. Leave your thoughts and your feedback below. I reply as often and as soon as I can. You guys and girls take care, and as Snake said, if we get through this, all will be revealed. I'll see you soon on the next one.
Alright, I'll take care of the wayward soul. It wasn't him.
Unfortunate.
I expected more of this one, really.
But he couldn't kill you, I see.
Completely useless.
Then he's all mine.
Now! Damn! Vamp. Are you gone? No. No, that death was meant for me. Why am I the only one that can't die? Alone again? Cheated out of death again? How long will you force me to live? You've punished me enough. I thought you could give me peace. But you couldn't kill me either.